Well, I guess it's finally time. In today's video, I will be ranking every Eminem album from worst to best. Eminem has so far made 12 studio albums in his long career, and I'm going to rank all of them from the very worst to the very best. In last place, to the surprise of absolutely no one, we're going with 2017's Revival. I know everyone puts this last place, and I don't want to be cliche, but let's be honest, this is the worst Eminem album. It is a bit sad how many people just take this album and hate on it and think it's all terrible. I remember Fantano gave it a 2, and one of the top comments was, Revival deserved lower. Revival has some good songs, and people really shouldn't view it as like an excuse to hate on Eminem, because one bad album shouldn't diminish his legacy, and it shouldn't give people a negative opinion on him. It is a bad album, though. In my opinion, it's the only one I would say is downright bad. It is a weird combination of rap, pop, and rock, and none of them really work. Eminem's done rap pop before with Recovery, and rap rock before the Eminem Show, and both worked well, but this combination just didn't work well. We just have some bad songs with some bad flow, especially Chloroseptic, and some bad production. Production's a major issue. Overall, I just feel like this album was a bit of a misstep, and there are only 3 songs which I really actually enjoy, which are, obviously, In Your Head, Castle, and A Rose, not in that specific order. Castle is the best song on this album, by far. It's an absolute masterpiece of music, and it's a shame that it had to be on this album, because if I'm listening to Revival, I'm going to listen to the last 3 songs. Offended might be my least favourite song on the album, just because of that chorus. I'm also not a fan of the fast part, but I also hate Heat, Chloroseptic, Untouchable, Remind Me. They're just not good songs, I'm sorry, they're just not good songs. And yeah, Revival was the worst album. It's a 3 out of 10, and here's the Tracklist ranking. In 11th place, we're going to go for Infinite. Infinite isn't an album many people know about. It was an album made on a very small budget before he became famous or made Dr. Dre, and it only sold about 70 to 1,000 copies. And yeah, a lot of people don't know about Infinite, but it's become more popular lately, and I mean, it's alright. The production quality isn't it, but, you know, he had a really small budget. I'm not going to say that much about Infinite, apart from I really like the song Infinite. Tonight and 313 are also good. I don't really remember much else, apart from the fact that I wasn't a fan of Open Mic. So yeah, the album's okay. It isn't bad by any means. It's just, it isn't as good as the things that are going to come later on. So I'm going to give Infinite a 4.5 out of 10. And here's my tracklist ranking. In 10th place, we have a very controversial pick from me, but I'm going for 2018's Kamikaze. This was a surprise album that's mainly consisted of responding to the current state of rap and the dislike of Revival. And I used to really like it. It used to be maybe top 6 for me, but then I re-listened to it, and I listened to some more Eminem projects more, and I don't like it as much. I still think it's a good album. It's short, and it's got like 4 songs that I'm not a fan of, and 4 songs on an 11-song album isn't great. And yeah, the highs aren't even that high. I mean, they're pretty high. Stepping Stone is probably my favourite song. Not Alike is great. Fall and the Ringer are good. But there are Venom is a bit overhated, but it still isn't very good. Good Guy is not good. Normal is a bad song in my opinion. I do not like Normal. But by far, the biggest problem with this album, and the worst song on here, by a trillion miles, is Nice Guy, which in my opinion is by far the worst song Eminem has ever made. This song is beyond unlistenable. This song is absolutely awful. and it is horrendous ear torture. That song is just Eminem's worst song ever by a mile. So yeah, that drags the album down a lot for me. So it's a 5.5 out of 10. And here's my tracklist ranking. For number 9, we're going for an album that's lower on most people's lists. That's 2004's Encore. Encore was originally intended to be a much better and more serious album, but it got leaked, and Eminem replaced a lot of it with downright terrible joke songs. And yeah, those songs are really awful, but they're meant to be. And if you take those out, if you skip the skips, then it's actually a really good album. And the high points are really high, in my opinion. Like, Mockingbird, of course, is like the most famous song from the album, and it became really popular in the last 5 or 6 years or so. I'm not really sure when it was, but Mockingbird became a huge song, and it's one of Eminem's biggest songs to this day. And I don't think it's the best song in this album. My favourite will go for Like Toy Soldiers. It's a good song, and there are a lot of other good songs. There's the Encore title track, there's Never Enough, there's Mosh, there's Yellow Brick Road, there's Crazy in Love, and of course there is My Beloved. Even though it's a guilty pleasure song, it isn't that good, so I haven't ranked it that high, but I love the song Evil Deeds. I just find it so fun. And then you've got, yeah, but the good parts are really good. And overall, I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10, to be honest. And here's my tracklist ranking. And coming in at number 7 is Music to Be Murdered By. Music to Be Murdered By is an album where Eminem took a very modern style, which is quite in contrast to how he was quite against modern rap on Kamikaze. And yeah, I really like Music to Be Murdered By. I have a lot of nostalgia for this album. I was listening to it a lot last Christmas, and I do like Eminem's modern sound as he applies to it. A lot of it sounds really good. A lot of it is quite mid, though. There are like 6 or 7 songs that I don't really care for, which is a bit problematic on such a long album, but the highs are really high. And the best song, without a doubt, is Darkness. Darkness is one of Eminem's best songs ever, as he tells a dual storyline taking the perspective of a shooter and performer, and it's an incredible song. I've listened to it so many times it never gets old. The most famous song is obviously Godzilla, which is great. There's also You Gon' Learn, which I think everyone likes. In Too Deep is one I like that most people don't like. I Will, Premonition. And then there are some songs that aren't great. We've got Marsh, Lock It Up, Never Love Again, Stepdad, Little Engine, No Regrets, Farewell. None of those I really care for, to be honest. Yeah, I think Music to Be Murdered By is a really good album, though. And it deserves to be in 8th place. I would give it a 7 out of 10, and here's my tracklist ranking. Quick editing note, Music to Be Murdered By Side B exists, but that's a deluxe edition instead of its own album, so I'm not going to review that. Just to let you know, I prefer Side A. Alright, anyway, on with the next album. And next, at 7th place, we have the new album, The Death of Slim Shady. I initially wasn't the biggest fan of this, but I've given it a couple of re-listens, and now I really like it. It took me a bit more tries to appreciate it, but I'm glad that I have re-listened to it. I mean, this is an incredible concept album that tells a great story with some great songs, and in my opinion, it's his best album since the Marshall Mathers LP 2, which isn't really a spoiler. But, I mean, there are so many good songs on this album. There are only 3 which I'm not crazy on, which are Habits, Head Honcho, and Road Rage, which is almost unanimously considered the worst song on this album, and I've got to agree. My top 3 favourites are, sorry to be generic, but Fuel is the best, followed by Renaissance, followed by Guilty Conscience 2. Yeah. Guilty Conscience 2 is a great song. Renaissance is just really exciting for the 1 minute, and Fuel, everyone loves Fuel. So yeah, I really liked Houdini, but I'm not a really big fan of Toby, to be honest. I didn't think it was that good of a single. But yeah, overall, I give this album a 7.5, and here is my tracklist ranking. And in 6th place, we have Relapse. What an album. When Relapse came out, most people didn't really like it, but now most people consider it Eminem's best album, apart from the 3 originals, which is clearly an opinion I don't share, but don't get me wrong, I still really like this album, and it hurts me I couldn't put this higher. But in my opinion, some albums above are just a bit better. He has a really good concept behind it and some really excellent songs, but there are also a few songs I don't care for. My Mum, Insane, Bagpipes from Baghdad, Medicine Ball. Hello might be the worst song. It's very forgettable. So yeah, this album, it's really good. I just might not like it as much as some people. So yeah, and there is an incredible 3-song run with with Deja Vu, Beautiful, and Crack a Bottle, which is just 3 incredible songs in a row. We also have the lyrical masterpiece of Stay Wide Awake on this album, which I absolutely love. My favourite song on here has got to be Beautiful, though. That is just one of Eminem's best songs, and it's so good. Anyway, this is an 8 out of 10, and here's my tracklist ranking. Before I go into the next part, I just want to say, please consider subscribing if you've enjoyed the video so far. Alright, I'm not going to waste any time. In 5th place, I'm going to go for the Marshall Mathers LP2. Now, I have a lot of nostalgia for this album. When I first listened to it, I was amazed, and I thought it was one of his best albums, and I probably put it at 4. But now, I've come back to reality, and I've changed my mind, and yeah, it's 5. It just isn't as good as another album. Now, this album's still really good, don't get me wrong. It's a great album. However, there are some songs that I just don't care for that much, and there's just a lot of average songs. There aren't really any downright bad songs, so I'm not a big fan of So Much Better or Stronger Than I Was. The standout song for me on this album is clearly Bad Guy. Bad Guy is one of Eminem's best songs he's ever made, and it's an incredible, epic sequel to Stan. There's also Rap God, Legacy, Berserk, and a bunch of other songs on here. So yeah, it's a really, really good album. It's an 8.5, and here's my tracklist ranking. Number 4 is Recovery. I know that's a controversial opinion to have, but I just really love Recovery. I've been listening to it so much more lately, and it is an absolutely great album. A lot of people don't really like it because it was more of like a pop album, a pop rap album, but I think it worked really well. So yeah, there are some great songs on here. You've got Not Afraid, is probably the most famous one. There's No Love, Cinderella Man, Spacebound, Love the Way You Lie, which is very popular, but one of the worst songs, but still not awful. Yeah, I don't really think there are any bad songs of this album. I'm not a big fan of Seduction, though, and I just don't remember Almost Famous in the slightest. So yeah, this is a really, really good album. So many songs are just absolutely great, and it just sounds really good, even if it might be a bit dated in its sound and everything. So yeah, the best song on this album for me has got to be No Love. Cinderella Man's also up there. Talking to Myself, Not Afraid, You're Never Over, even Untitled. A bunch of great songs. Anyway, to be honest, this is a 9 out of 10, and here is my tracklist ranking. In 3rd place, we're going to go for the Slim Shady LP. This is the album that introduced the world to Eminem, and it was immensely popular, and it sent him into superstardom. And yeah, it is a really, really good album. So many good songs, a great concept, a great sound, everything. It just works so well. This is my second time recording this, as the first time didn't work, so I'm going to keep it brief. My Name was the lead single to this, and yeah, that's one of his best lead singles, and it's a really good song. We've got Guilty Conscience, another popular song, and there's the Just and Still duology. There's Rock Bottom and Role Model. I personally prefer Rock Bottom, but they're both great. Most people don't like Come On Everybody. I don't mind it that much. It's one of the weaker songs. My least favourite is actually going to be As the World Turns. I'm not really sure why, I'm just not as much of a fan of it as the other songs, but there's nothing terrible in this album. There really isn't even anything bad. Some songs are mediocre at worst, and masterpieces at best. Just Don't Give a Fuck is my favourite song on this album, by a large majority. It's one of his best songs ever. Yeah, it's incredible. This album's a 10. Here's my Tracklist ranking. And in second place, we have what is normally considered to be his best album. It's the Marshall Mathers LP. Wow, this is just such a good album. It's just got loads of good songs. Almost every song is great. There are only 3 songs which I'm not a massive fan of. Those being Kim, Amityville, and Remember Me. Kim is an interesting concept of a song. Stan is usually considered to be the best song on this album. I agree. The Real Slim Shady was a hit single, and it's a classic. The Way I Am, Marshall Mathers, Who Knew is a really good one. Yeah, so many standout songs from this album. So many great songs, and it's got a real great theme to it, exploring the person of Marshall Mathers a bit more. Yeah, this is clearly another 10, and here's my Tracklist ranking. And in first place, Eminem's best album, to the surprise of absolutely no one, is going to be The Eminem Show. In my opinion, this is his best album by far, and it's actually my personal favourite album of all time. Every song is a masterpiece. Every single one. You've got Without Me, Till I Collapse, Sing for the Moment, which is probably my favourite song, Cleaning Out My Closet, White America, Superman, so much famous and so much popular good stuff. And it was popular for a reason. It's so good. Every song is tremendously good. This album has no skips. This album has pretty much nothing wrong with it. This is a perfect album, and it is by far Eminem's best. Yeah, Sing for the Moment is actually probably my favourite Eminem song of all time. My Dad's Gone Crazy is my least favourite, but still, every song's great. Yeah, I just love every song in this album. It is just so good. It's packed with masterpieces from front to back. And yeah, this is beyond a 10. This is a strong 10, a very strong 10 at that. And why am I setting myself on fire? Anyway, yeah. Strong 10. Here's my Tracklist ranking. And that's it. I'm not going to do an overly long outro, other than to say Eminem's probably my favourite musician of all time. He's the one I've listened to the most and had most interest in. So yeah. I'll ask again, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.